No? No. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good following morning. Today is July 23rd, July 23rd. I am all over that, on top of the date. Good to see everybody here. Very, very special episode today. It is the first time I actually am bringing back a guest. He was so fantastic and full of information, and we didn't finish everything we need to talk about. So I'm bringing back my very special guest, Rabbi Michael Paley, who will come in live from Budapest in a few minutes. So that's we'll get to that. But first, you may notice today I am wearing a mask or a shield. Is it some type of new regulation? No, but I will tell you that I saw my coworker Aggie wearing this mask, and I thought it was very cool and looked comfortable. So I went out and ordered some, and I have to say, I'm really enjoying it, and it's comfortable, and you can use your iPhone, and it's supposed to much not as cumbersome as the full shield, and also much more comfortable, of course, than a mask. But after wearing it for all of a few hours today, I then report coming out of Switzerland that these shields don't do anything. There was a hotel where some of the employees were wearing masks and some were wearing shields, not particularly this sort of half one, more the full one. And all the employees got sick that were wearing the shields, and none of the ones who were wearing the traditional masks got sick. So while I think this is very comfortable and in some ways convenient, it doesn't seem to be wildly effective. I just wanted to mention that. I will now take this off because I, of course, am not here with anyone and don't need to wear that. So let's see who we have. Benji, good morning, Benji. Laverne, Chuck Fishman, Sita, hi Sita, and Jerry, my dad. Hi Marcel, how are you doing, Marcel? Hope you're riding and feeling good. Benji says I should give a Hannibal Lecter impression with that mask. Benji, I'm Hannibal Lecter mask. Don't worry about that. And I don't, you don't have to worry about me eating your liver with fava beans and a nice Chianti, because I am a vegetarian that doesn't drink. So I could do the fava beans, but there would probably not be much liver or Chianti involved. But anyway, thank you for that comment, Benji. I appreciate that you get to practice your stand-up material here during the AMA every week. I'm happy to be that you can workshop things with us. We always appreciate that. So July 23rd, summer is here, more or less today. Not such a nice day, but summer going on all across the world, except for our friends in Australia and New Zealand who have the opposite. But summer is here for most of us. People are not really going away as much as they were before. I think some people in the US are camping and doing like RVs and things. I've seen some friends camping. In Poland, people are not going abroad so much. They're going away like to the Polish seaside or to the mountains. We have some people on vacation. Asha actually went to the sea to meet up with her mom and sister and her sister's kids who are there at the seaside in a place called Demki, which is all the way in the north of Poland. Very, very pretty place. And so something very strange, which is I am home alone. I travel a lot, sometimes with Kash. Rarely am I in the house. Nobody else is there. So it's kind of new for me to be on my own. Kasha is very, very worried about me because she thinks that all I'm going to do is work and then not eat. She couldn't be farther from the truth. She's way off. I'm, okay, perhaps working all the time and staying in the office, but actually making sure that I eat and cooking for myself and making delicious, healthy shakes in the morning, veggies and fruits and all that good stuff. So not to worry, I'm fully able to take care of myself, but it is a bit strange being at home alone just because it doesn't really happen. Usually I leave for work in the morning, Kasha's there, I come home in the evening. Most of the time Kasha there, so it's odd for me to have this empty house. But that's where we are with that. But actually, you just figured out our vacation. We were originally planning on going to the US. That's obviously not happening. Then we thought about Israel. Israel's not happening, I could go, but quarantine. So we are going for 2 weeks to Greece, to the Greek islands. There are very, very good flights from Krakow to a place called Kos, which is a Greek island right off the Turkish coast. So I've never been there before. I've been to other Kashan. I actually been to Crete, and I've been to some other islands and Athens and Thessaloniki, but I've never been to those, I guess, the Dodecanese islands. So if any of you have any suggestions, islands or places to visit, Rhodes is there, Kos, I think Limnos, 2 other islands. So if anybody has any Greek island suggestions, please send them my way. Also, I think I'll be continuing the AMA from Greece, so just to make everybody a little bit jealous that I will broadcast live from the Greek islands. That's something I'm excited for. See what's going on at the J. Everything is still open. The seniors are actually here today, out socially distanced, socially interacting, but physically distanced, wearing masks and alcohol in the courtyard as one does. So that's been good. The kids are all okay, and things continue. We're just very busy trying to figure out what September should look like. August is really quiet. But what's September, and we're doing, as most of you who have these type of things to think about are doing, thinking about different scenarios, if the world gets better, if the same, if things get worse. So trying to come up with a bit of A, B, and C situation for that. So hopefully we'll figure that out. You have to try the Greek salads in Benji. Really, Benji? That's all you can come up with? Nancy, hi Nancy Carp. Santorini is beautiful. Yeah, Santorini is beautiful. I haven't been, but I don't think it's quite near us. I think those are a little bit Santorini, Mykonos, some of those islands, but we're there for weeks, so I think we can have a decent amount of time to try some different islands. I'm excited for the ice cream, or for Kasha for the ice cream. Greece, underrated ice cream country, as you might know, and a lot of it is with sheep milk ice cream. I remember being in Thessaloniki, and you're having some excellent ice cream. So I'm excited for Kasha to check that out. Speaking of food, I did mention it before as well that I'm eating well on my own, not as well as before, but okay. That I mentioned last week that I was going to do a pizza podcast. So I did the pizza podcast, and it is live. Sebastian's going to toss that link here in the commentary for you. It was good, and I think there are some questions that I'm going to get to in a little bit about pizza. So let's get to the questions that were sent in. Number 1, what's up with you and Rabbi Paley's bromance? Not everything needs to be described in words. Rabbi Paley and I have a special relationship. It doesn't get in the way of his marriage to the lovely Annie DeBreitzer, nor mine to the lovely Kasha Leonardi, but Rabbi Paley and I certainly are certain type of soulmates, you could say. Actually, it's probably not such a reciprocal relationship. I learn a lot from him, and he teaches and insults me, more like a Yoda Luke relationship, but still working on that one. But we'll talk to him a little bit about that. Hi, Terry. How you doing, Terry? When am I coming to Toronto? I was supposed to come to Toronto, and then things got a little crazy last year. So when am I coming anywhere besides Greece in August is hopefully after Corona ends, I will start to make the usual rounds. And Toronto, which I visited personally, but have never visited in my JCC capacity, will be on the list. Of course, we have very good contacts in Toronto. It'll be good to see you, and a lot of the friends that we've met from March of the Living, and other groups that have been through Toronto, the Holocaust Education Center in Toronto, we've done some work with. So I'll be very excited about that, to come to Toronto. Absolutely. Let's see what else we have. Next question is, what's with the JCC? Are we opening after the summer? I came up with that. What are my holiday plans? I saw Kasha's on the seaside. What do we do when she's not around? I believe I mentioned that I work a lot, and be going to the gym a little bit more. So the gym in the JCC is open, or open if you're working in the building as the director. So without someone waiting for me when I come home, I've been spending a little bit more time in the gym, which is always good. Feel like during Corona, it wouldn't be very easy for many of us, maybe get out of shape and not move so much. So I've made a special effort to be able to keep things moving, keep moving, and not get too out of shape during Corona. Do I have any secret pizza recommendations for Krakow, and what's my favorite pizza in the U.S.? The favorite, let's see, in Krakow, yeah, I like in Krakow. It's a good question. In Krakow, I would have to say that Pizza Garden, which is a nice story. A guy named Staszek, who for many years in the pizza place Grimaldi's under the Brooklyn Bridge, which is a pretty cult place. He worked there for about 10 years and learned all their secrets. And after 10 years making pizza there, he came to Krakow and opened a really good pizza, kind of New York style, little bit Grimaldi style pizza in Krakow, which is excellent. So that's probably my favorite. There's a good Neapolitan pizza as well, a place called Vincenzone, which is this little out of the way place, one table, and the guy makes great pizza, good Neapolitan pizza. Favorite pizza in the US, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna have to go with Di Fara in Brooklyn, Avenue J and 15th Street, which is a cult pizza place. There's one guy, until very recently, there was one guy there making the pizza for the last 40 years or 50 years. Nobody else made pizza at all. Now I think his daughter is helping out, but there's a really, among pizza people, this Di Fara in Midwood, Brooklyn is a cult place. I like, and I really like this place called Mama's 2 on the Upper West Side, which is sort of a Detroit style pizza. They do these square slices, so it's not a fancy place. Just go in and get a slice on 110th and Broadway, maybe, which is phenomenal pizza. So those are the two that I like best these days. Actually, I like Vezzo as well, very, very thin pizza. It's amazing how thin they get it in Murray Hill. So on, I'm gonna say 28th and Lexington, somewhere. Those would be my favorite pizzas. So without further ado, I am happy to bring back the one, the only Rabbi Michael Paley, who's coming to us live from the beautiful city of Budapest, Hungary. I will not go once again into his whole bio. He was for many, many years the scholar in residence at UJA Federation in New York. Now he works for the Joint Distribution Committee, is sort of working and building Jewish life in Europe. We talked all about that. He was a college chaplain. He founded the Bronfman Fellowships. He has a CV as long as my arm.
Because I can't keep a job.
Very good to see you, Rabbi Paley. How are you, sir?
I'm okay. I just have to do this 1 second. Can you see me? Oh, you can.
I am lucky enough to see you, as are all our visitors, all our
Thank
viewers.
you so much. I'm happy to be here with you again.
How are you?
I'm great. It's a beautiful day, and it had nice little rain, and Budapest is beautiful in the summertime.
So very good.
I miss Krakow, of course. I missed the festival. I missed the ride. I missed the excitement. I missed the synagogue life at the Isaac Synagogue. It was so exciting last time I was there, but all right, what can you do?
Exactly. So you talk about Budapest. We'll talk about Krakow and Budapest, but I want to get into Budapest. We talked about a lot of things last week, and we talked about your previous world in the US and your previous life there, but maybe talk a little bit about Budapest. So tell me about the city. What about the city of Budapest? Not everybody, we take it for granted here sometimes internally. Everybody knows Budapest, but I don't think everybody watching knows Budapest.
So first of all, it's the capital of Hungarian Jewry, and as you probably know, Hungarian Jews are the most intense intellectual and productive secular Jews. So the subtext of that remark was that Jonathan Ornstein is a Hungarian Jew. Let's be clear.
You're already coming in with the big guns and letting
I
people know. I am a Polish citizen.
I feel the appropriate word here is outed. A few things about Budapest. It is probably as far east as Western Europeans would go, and as far west as Eastern Europeans would go. And you kind of feel that in the city. It has two parts to it, Pest and Buda, and the Danube River in between. And you feel the kind of interplay of lots of different kind of cultures and people. The Hungarian people are fierce people from the central steppes of Central Asia, according to them, the Magyar people, but the Jews have been here longer. They came in the 10th century. And it feels kind of like this was what Karl Lueger, the anti-Semite mayor of Vienna, called Budapest. And you feel the whole, there are 23 synagogues, there are 100 to 120, maybe 150,000 Jews, even halachic Jews, maybe 200,000 non-halachic Jews.
Wow, so the number, I have to tell you that as somebody who appreciates number and appreciates large, I'm very liberal camp in terms of judging how many people there are in cities, as we know. But you heard it here first, folks, 150 or 200,000 halachic in Budapest. Mind blown.
I believe that if Jonathan Ornstein was the demographer of Budapest, 4 million Jews. That's how many there would be.
Well, I'm going to take that. There are two ways to interpret that. I would claim that there were 4 million Jews, or if Jonathan Ornstein were in a leadership in Budapest, there are eventually 4 million Jews.
That's
which are you saying?
The latter.
Sir? The latter.
The latter. If you were here, it would just be an explosion of Jewish celebration. But let's be clear, at Judah Fest that the JCC of Budapest does, 10,000 people show up. It has the great summer camp called Sarvas, and it's a beautiful Austro-Hungarian, mostly Austrian city. It has some complexes because it often gets conquered. So there's a certain underlying pessimism here. And it was the home to the most famous and productive Jews of the 19th and 20th century.
Sorry to interrupt, would that be pessimism?
Pessimism, that's right. And also sometimes
you can use that.
Pestomism.
Pestomism. It depends if you're in an Italian. If you're at an Italian restaurant in Budapest and feeling a bit of the Weltschmerz, the weirdness, it could be pestomism.
Yeah, or let's put the pest back in pesto.
That's right. Or if somebody's being really annoying, you could be like, you're being very Budapestimistic.
I can feel people turning our broadcast off all over America at this very moment.
Or there are word lovers who are, they're from their Saturday Saturday crossword puzzle, which was of
Saturday
course,
crossword puzzle,
the one that's really the challenge, and tuning into us.
I'm an avid follower of Will Shortz, and I can break into anagrams at any minute.
What Eugene T. Maleska?
One more thing about Budapest. All the great and terrible inventions of the 20th century came from Hungarian Jews. Edward Teller and John Kemeny, the inventor of basic language, and Leo Szilard. They say people's last names first, Ornstein, Jonathan. The great physicist and Robert Korda, the photojournalist, and Imre Kertész, the Nobel laureate in literature. I mean, on and on. There are physicists, there are photographers, there are writers, there were thinkers, there were visionaries. It was the capital of secular Judaism. As Poland was the capital of religious Judaism, Hasidism and like that, Budapest was the capital of secular Judaism. It's a bold claim.
So I was on the right path when I was living in Israel, considering my somewhat outlook. When I had a Hungarian girlfriend when I was living, but it didn't work out, and then Poland, and I could have been gone back to my roots in Hungary. But I want to make sure we have questions coming in from the viewers.
From the Welterrein.
Yeah, we have a question from Jeffrey Rolat first. I'm being put to these questions.
We're the only people that apparently has his own time zone.
Yeah, and Benji Lovett has his own. Jeffrey has asked me, and I'm supposed to make sure you answer. Rabbi, I know you believe in gambling, but do you believe in paying debts or acknowledging losses? I'm not sure what you're referring to there, but I've been asked to ask you that one, Mr. Rabbi Paley.
Well, I believe Jeffrey Rolat is correct in this case. I might have overplayed my hand the last time I spoke to him. Although I still believe in the project, the time frame does seem to have slipped a bit.
God is in the timing, they say.
Unless Jeffrey Rolla doesn't think I remember what we're talking about here.
Question from, hi, Sue Ellen. I see Sue Ellen. Good morning, Sue Ellen, and a walk in the
Hi,
park.
Sue Ellen.
Hi, Sue Ellen. Benji, a question from our friend Benji Lovett. Rabbi, the legendary Israeli humorist Ephraim Kishon was from Budapest. Is he revered in the Jewish community of Budapest?
You know, the Protexia, he is. There's a sculpture, a memorial to him, like a big stone memorial to him on the main street of the theaters. What's it called? Whatever the name of the street is. Najmezer Street. He also had a cafe named after him, the Ephraim Kishon Cafe. Sometimes when people have to go through a bothersome bureaucracy here, they say, it's like a story from Kishon. How many people know what they're talking about when they say that? I can't think very many, but
what about, but it wouldn't run into like beyond the Jew, right? You wouldn't have just two random people.
Well, first of all, I think there are probably 8,000 Israelis that live here. That's an actual number, that's what the ambassador says. So on top of the 120,000 Jews, Hungarians, 8,000 more Israelis studying dentistry. And
that's not a Paley Ornstein number?
Not a Paley Ornstein number. I never counted them, but the embassies, that's what they say.
It's the Paley.
It's for sure true. You hear Hebrew all the time.
You hear Hebrew in the normal non-corona world, of course we're speaking. You hear Hebrew here all the time if you go to the mall.
Yeah, I know. But those guys are just visiting Poland.
Everyone's
These guys
shopping.
kind of live here.
In Krakow.
Hey, there's 6 flights between Budapest and Tel Aviv a day when the corona is lower.
Yeah, I think Poland has flights from 10 different cities to Israel.
Yeah, amazing.
And probably 50 flights a week.
What a country.
What a country.
We love Israel, right?
What a country.
What a country.
By the way, we should have something.
Those Jews, we love them.
I think we should have something, Michael, called the Paley Ornstein European population quote, which is a certain number that you have to throw. If you have 10, if you had 7.5, if you had 7 people, a minion.
I would like to quote Andras Kovac, who is the demographer of Budapest, and thank him for these numbers.
Listen, you got.
It's a very exhaustive study of the numbers and the snowball effect of how they got them of Budapest. It's in Hungarian. Of course, I've never read it, but I hear it's brilliant. So
what is the total population of Budapest, Michael?
2 million.
So according to some, I'm not going to say who said the quote, but according to something you told me a few ago, that would you have 200,000 Jews in Budapest and 1.8 million anti-Semites.
He said, this is based on a person I know who said, I think there are only 2 kinds of people, anti-Semites and Jews. That's it. Wow. It's a kind of a bleak binary view of the world. We have gallows humor. You and I don't believe that. I
want
to tell you though, I don't believe that, but I certainly don't believe that. I definitely don't believe that. But if you're looking for anti-Semitism, Budapest, we have plenty. It's flourishing.
Is it anti-Semitism or is it more just fascism? And I think that we sometimes, we're Jews. It's like for us, a hammer, the whole world is a nail. So any people like us, and we think that us, but maybe they don't like anybody who's not exactly like them, and we're just in the other category.
Last year, at the March of the Living parade down the Danube, there was a counter parade called the Give Gas Parade. This is one of my favorite stories.
Really?
8 years, yeah, really. 17% of the parliament ran on a Nazi platform. So you gotta be impressed by that.
Well, you know what?
One second. Wait, 1 second. About 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I'm here, and it's October 23rd, which is Hungry Day. It's the day of the failure of the 1956 revolution, so it's a national holiday. Because since no revolution they ever fought succeeded, they have national holidays on the failures. March 15th, that was a failure against Austria, like that. So we didn't know this. So we went, Andy and I went to the supermarket, and the supermarket's closed. We don't know why, because the signs were in Hungarian. So we walked, but it's about I don't know, 60, 70 feet from the Parliament building and the plaza in front of it. We can hear the plaza. It's great. So we go there. Oh, wonderful. People are dancing in native costumes. They have pans of goulash and they're singing songs and it's great. And we're dancing. We're having a great time also, right? Big guy comes over to me with one of those like little Hungarian hats with the feather on it, and he says, excuse me, Bocciano, are you Jewish? And I said, I am Jewish. It's still Eastern Europe. You don't like the question, Central Europe. And so he says, this is the anti-Semitic rally. You should really go to the rally at the Elizabeth Bridge. I said, you mean the rally that we're having right now? He says, yes, it's the anti-Semitic rally. So I said, really? Like, how? It's like 100,000 people there. How would you know it's anti-Semitic? He says, well, look at the signs. This one says, the Jews gave away our land from Trianon. This one says the Jews have ruined our economy. This one, in every place you look, there were big anti-Semitic signs. So I said to him, thank you very much. I appreciate that. But like, why are you here? He says, well, the government gives us $40 a person to come to the rally. It only costs $10, $30. There are 5 people in our family, $150. That's like a lot of money for us in our family. Wouldn't you come for that much money? I said, absolutely not. I'm a Jew. What are you, stupid? And he said, well, he said, maybe you're right. Maybe we shouldn't have come. But they come. So I'll tell you one thing. The anti-Semitism here is not based on everything being a nail.
Were you and Annie able to get $40 each?
We didn't get the money. We didn't know how to go.
Well,
and we're the Jews. We're usually very good at that.
Yeah.
I know it was a sad moment that we didn't get the money.
So I have a theory, but I'm not sure if it's my theory.
I never thought about that story. I need the money now.
I very often think of things and I think maybe that's really clever. I thought of that, but then almost all the time it's just something I read or someone else told me, and it's hard to figure that out sometimes. Not all of us have the memory of Michael Paley. So
I have a strong memory.
What about this idea? And someone will tell me if it's not my idea. I feel like German anti-Semitism is based on the idea that they feel superior to us, and Polish anti-Semitism is based on the idea that they feel inferior. Oh, Jews are good at this and good at that and control, and all the stereotypes in Poland are like Jews with these mystical, magical powers. Whereas, for Germans, we're like Untermenschen, just underneath. Now, I don't know, it probably is like a common thing and I just heard it somewhere and I've adopted it. But anyway, I like it. I think that there's a lot of logic in that, not because maybe it could be from me, because it probably isn't. But assuming that there's some logic in those two ideas, where would Hungary, first of all, what do you think of that thesis? And also, where would Hungary fit in? Because I feel like Hungarians have a bit of the sort of fascist aspect to in their history. Not that they're fascist.
It's a dictatorship right now.
Poland, when Poles think about Hungarians, Poles kind of see, forget about not Jews, just Poles see Hungarian having these sort of like fascist tendencies. So what do you think about the
There's a Polish and Hungarian sentence that says Hungarians and Poles laugh together and drink together. No, right. Drink together and fight together.
Yeah.
All right, here's my take on what you said, which is, of course, brilliant. So the Jews and anti-Semitism, which is very old here, right? We came, the great Jewish writer, Arthur Koestler, he's the statue of him. He articulates this as well in some way in his book called The 13th Tribe. The Jews are the counter identity, If you're rich, the Jews are poor. If you're poor, the Jews are rich. If you're a right wing, the Jews are on the left. If you're on the left, the Jews are on the right. The Jews are the counter identity. So anytime a country or a nationality or an empire needs to assert themselves, they need like a foil. This is who we are. This is who we're not. We are so great at being the foil. Islam was never a particularly anti-Semitic religion. There were moments, you can write me letters, I can answer them, don't worry. There were moments, I know. But there was no like Auschwitz. There was no like massacres like that. In Hudabaya in the first year of the Prophet, 622, in case people want to know, there was. But after that, nothing. So why all this anti-Semitism now? Well, all of a sudden, the world of Islam starts to rise, and it needs to say, this is who we are, but also this is who we're not, and who are not European colonialists. And who are the European colonialists? The Jews. We call them the Israelis.
So why Jews?
In Hungary,
versus Christians? according
because
to
Christians are not a counter identity. The Christians are a clear, huge population of 1 billion people. You can't say we're not the Christians.
2 billion.
But I think 1 billion, no? But it's our
Catholics and Protestants together, 2 billion.
I think 2 or 1.
2 billion. You have 1 billion Catholics. You can't discount the rest of the. What about if you have 1 billion Catholics? Then you can't have 1 billion Catholics and Protestants.
I only count Jews. I don't care. So in Hungary, what's the meaning of it? You know, you said Übermensch and Untermensch and smart and like that. So in Hungary, you can say 4 things. Number 1, we're a small xenophobic country that mostly gets invaded. The Jews, they're everywhere. They're the global people. We're a modest, simple people, not very well educated. The Jews are the most educated people everywhere. Even in Budapest, they're the most educated people. We work hard for our living and we don't give away much. The Jews, they give tzedakah, money comes in. I went to a meeting with Viktor Orban, the prime minister of Hungary and dictator, and he said this. He got up in front at the World Jewish Congress meeting. He got up and he said, you know, the Jews in Budapest are so lucky because the rest of the world sends them food packages and help and this, that, and we Hungarians, we're alone. Nobody cares about us. So that's a crazy statement, right? I mean, first of all, you think the Jews are Hungarians? No,
well,
they're
it's
not.
like a statement from 1975 or something, when that might have been true to some degree.
Maybe, but that statement comes from 2017.
Right.
So in some ways, the counter identity, even the EU, right? Hungary tries to push away, like Poland now, the EU. And even the EU is seen as the Jewish conspiracy to strip Hungary of its nationality. It's fascinating. What's the best thing that's ever happened to Hungary in the last 100 years? The EU. The EU. Maybe Michael Paley. What's the best thing that happened to Poland in the last 27 years? EU.
Well, in how many years? 100 years?
I think it's what, 27 years ago, was it?
We ascended to the EU, and I use the term ascended carefully, in 2004.
2004. I think here it was 1997.
What's interesting here is that on some level, people like to rally. It's used as sort of the boogeyman in Poland. The EU's coming, the EU and this, but people don't really, when you actually ask them questions in a certain way, oh, do you want to leave the EU? Things like this, people are like, no way, of course not. And all the people who are against the EU in Poland are the ones who are benefiting the most. So the farmers are, oh, the EU, but they're the ones who are actually getting the services. You can't go to an airport in Poland and, you know, or drive on a highway that wasn't built with EU funds. Poland has been the largest beneficiary of EU funds and is still complaining about the EU. But Poland is not as bad. They just have cover because of Hungary. So Poland knows need unanimous decision among all the countries. So Hungary and Poland sort of have a deal that they stand up for each other and then they protect each other that way, which is a shame. But Poland, our government has said that they want to be Hungary.
Your story,
look at Hungary as a successful model of illiberal democracy. That's the dream for Poland. The Polish leadership, they want Hungary, as does Donald Trump.
All right, so let's be honest. I love living here. It's a beautiful city. I love the Jews here. I love the Upper West Side of Budapest, which we call the 13th district. I like the food. I like the whole thing. I like the shuls. I like the rabbinical school. I like all that stuff. We're not talking about some schlepper little community. I like the Federation. I like the JCC. I like all these people. But the story you just told, which is that the EU did all this stuff for Poland and now they're against the EU, it baffles me. It's hard to understand. And Hungary is a population of 10 million, the whole country. For them to be a model for Poland, population of what, 37, 39, something like that million.
Yeah.
So what sense does that make? I can't make sense of it.
Michael, you have 3 children.
I do, 3 children and a
Any
grandchild.
of them at any point, yeah, three wonderful children. You should have a lot of nachas. You and Annie should have a lot of nachas from them. Tell me, at any point, did they ever rebel against you and Annie?
They all, thank God, rebelled against me and Andy, but they didn't leave the EU.
Although you and Annie provided them with everything they ever needed in life. That's what one does.
I guess that's right. You know, the whole world is either holding on or breaking apart. So right now, I guess they're breaking. You know, there's a monument now. This is interesting to me. I didn't think we talked so much about Hungary, but there was an agreement 100 years ago last month, right? It's called the Trianon Agreement. A Trianon was like a little cottage on the corner of Versailles. And they said, you know, it wasn't like the main Treaty of Versailles. It was like a little schlepper corner agreement. And in that agreement, they stripped Hungary of 60% of its land. You know, Serbia and Romania and Ukraine and Slovakia and Austria and, you know, like that. So and a few others. So Slovenia, my favorite. So the people of Hungary pined for that land. They pined for it. And it's just exactly 100 years. It was, I think, June 1st, 1920, when the agreement was finally concluded. They've just put a huge monument in front of the parliament to all the cities that they lost in the Trianon Agreement. I mean, it's kind of like, I say to people, it's 100 years. Get over it. No, we can't sleep. Some people said we can't sleep until the Trianon territories are repatriated. I don't know. I think it's amazing. I talked to a guy in Transylvania, which used to be, he's a Hungarian speaker. He was born in Romania. His father was born in Romania. Grandfather was born in Romania. So I said, what do you do? He says, you know, a lot of us can't get jobs until the Trianon thing is settled. I said, get a job. Really, you can do it.
People that feel wrong have scars don't heal. We're dealing with Confederate flags in the United States.
Yes. How
can you be pro-American and waving Confederate, something that we never even thought too much about, I guess, as just white people in the Northeast? Oh, those people, those weirdos in the South with Confederate flags. It was secession. They seceded. That's a traitorous. How is anybody sitting there with an American flag next to a Confederate flag? They were against each other. We didn't, you know, people hold on to these. The losing side has a much more difficult time with dealing with loss.
You know, this is a city. I have much to say about the Confederate flags, and particularly Fort Bragg, which was named in the 20th century for a guy that was a traitor in the 19th century. Yeah. You know, as a clear, and I mean, not to mention the Washington Redskins, but outside of our house,
former Redskins.
Outside of our house is the former Redskins, or the Redskins. So outside of our house is a statue of a guy named Imre Nagy, beautiful sculpture. He's on a bridge. He's wearing his Imre Nagy hat, and he was the unfortunate leader of the 1956 revolution against Russia, and then they killed him. You know, ultimately they killed him. So outside of the parliament, when I was living near the parliament, there was this sculpture of Imre Nagy. Then one night, about a year and a few months ago, I hear this big crack. I thought it was like an earthquake. I ran outside my house, and what are they doing? In the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, they have a crane that's pulling his statue out from the ground and removing it. So I'm saying, why? And they said, it's a communist. You know, we're anti-communist. And then I moved to the 13th district, the Jewish district, and all of a sudden one night, I wake up and I see that there's welding going on outside. What are they doing? They put Imre Nagy's statue in the Jewish quarter.
But is it?
It's fascinating, right? The Jews are communists, of course. They love Imre. I love him, by the way. I go in the monument. It's good.
Is there, when I remember being in Budapest a long time ago and visiting a park of statues, communist statues that they took down. I thought it was phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Very cool.
Phenomenal. There's one statue there that has a worker with a scarf in the air, you know, a flag, like a communist flag. Yeah. And he's muscular. It's like Soviet realism. And people call that statue, "Lady, you forgot your scarf." But one of the sculptures is Lenin's boots, right? They had a big statue of Lenin in the middle of Hero Square. And in 1989, they took the statue down, but they preserved the boots. So you can go see the boots. I love going to that place.
I thought that with all the things going on recently in the United States about statues and Confederacy and racism and Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
I thought that this model in Budapest might be a viable model for places in the United States. I think
it'd be great.
Destroying something is one thing. I mean, they probably shouldn't have been, or not probably, they shouldn't have been erected in the first place.
Right.
Considering that they weren't, all these Civil War statues were erected 50 years later, not even just around the time of the war. So there's really no excuse. But if they already exist, then maybe you put them and you add some historical context about who these people were and what they did and the damage that they did, and maybe that's what you do. That's how you deal with it.
I'm for that. I think it's a great idea. Absolutely, it's part of the history. Trump should be for that idea, but probably he's not.
Well, we'll have to run it by Jared.
Jared Kushner, that's right.
With our guy. So generally, was it a difficult? So about Budapest, I wanted to just focus today on Budapest. Was it a difficult decision? Did you get a lot of pushback from people around you? Oh, you're crazy. What about Annie?
Well, first of all, Annie and I, we just love being here. It's a really enchanted place, and we want to live an enchanted life. So
Enchanted.
nothing.
That was our word last. That was our word last time.
Yeah. So I pick up the thread, and it's very inspiring. The Jewish community is very inspiring. I found the Jewish community very inspiring here. So, what's your pushback? Most people have no idea what's going on here.
What inspires you particularly?
Of the world, most of the Jews are secular, and they have to embrace some kind of peoplehood or Jewish culture. And in Budapest, mostly because the Jews don't really want to be Hungarian in the Magyar way. They want to be part of the state of Hungary. They're happy to live in Budapest. Hardly anybody leaves here. It's a magnetic place. I mean, maybe I drank from some fountain or something, but as soon as I left it, I just couldn't get out of my mind. There's a fountain in Sarajevo that says, if you drink from this fountain, you'll always come back to Sarajevo. So my friend Ed Serrata said, during the war, he said, I didn't know when I was going to come back. He says, maybe it wasn't such a good thing. So Budapest is like that. It got into my heart. The Jewish community here, I don't know, there's something creative and cutting edge about them. There's a wonderful writer named Kati Marton, who was married to Peter Jennings and who else? Peter Jennings and Richard Holbrooke, those two people.
Not at the same time.
Not at the same time. She's a wonderful writer and a wonderful scholar. She wrote a great book on Hungary on Hungarian Jews called The Great Escape. Her parents were journalists, and she had to do some research on who they were. So she went to the Hall of Records and she opens up their records and she finds out at that moment, oh, they're both Jewish. And I must be Jewish too. That's how she found out. She was like 25 years old. And then she gets really into it and she starts to write and she says, how come so many amazing people came from Hungary? And she says, it's because of the thrice loneliest people. Hungary is the loneliest country in Europe because they speak this crazy language. The Jews are lonely in Hungary because they're not really accepted as Hungarians. And the secular Jews aren't even part of the worldwide religious community. They were secular Jews. They were lonely even among the Jews. And like one of the great Hungarian Jews, Theodor Herzl, he said, too lonely here. We got to build our own country. That was really what the beginning of Zionism was. He wanted to build a secular Jewish paradise, which sometimes it is. I like
this term, thrice loneliest. So speaking about the structure of Hungarian Judaism a little bit, because we're all familiar with Orthodox, Hasidism, conservative, Reform, all the little intricacies within secular humanist, if you will, the virulent atheist, whatever one might be. But you have a different type of Judaism in Hungary, or at least it goes by a different name. So tell us about this.
First of all, I'm not sure what virulent atheists are, but but maybe they have a virus. It's all the rage. So so Hungary in the 1840s began to go through some kind of reformation, right? Most of all the Jewish community was what we'll understand to be Orthodox, and they were dominated by the rabbis of Bratislava, Pressburg, of Pushkin, as we call it. I live on Pushkin Street. And the Chazon Ish and the Chassam Sofer and Moshe Sofer, these were the stalwart, very strong, very strict, right? Hungarian rabbis. So there was a group of people, and they called themselves the neologue. The neologue means the new word, right? We're the latest word. And the neologue, they did some radical things. Men and women didn't sit together, but there was no more mechitza, right? There was no actual barrier. They didn't sit together. They still don't sit together. No women on the bima, don't worry. No women get bat mitzvah, don't worry. They get bat mitzvah outside of synagogue. They don't get bar mitzvah inside. No egalitarian service even till today in Budapest, not even one.
So I thought it was closer to conservative, but it's not.
It's not. So I'm here to disabuse you of that, even though many people will say what you said. Actually, it's a combination of Reform and Orthodox.
Ooh.
That's the really interesting part, because like one of the things they said is if you drive a car to shul on Shabbos morning, you can still get an aliyah. But if you walk into the service, it feels Orthodox, completely Orthodox. They'll tell you that they're modern Orthodox.
So in other words, things around the actual liturgy and what's going on inside the synagogue is more Orthodox, but people around things around the service.
They trim their beards.
Driving.
They drove. They trimmed their beards. They wore regular Hungarian hats. They wore frock coats. They didn't wear long kapatas. They didn't wear. I just had one more little story about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and then I want to ask you how they fit in today, what the organized structure looks like today.
It has a tremendous impact on our day-to-day Israeli and American lives. Why is that? Okay. There was a wonderful minister of religion and education named Erdvist. I don't know how you spell it. E-O something, I don't know, it doesn't matter. And he had a Congress, a Jewish Congress of 1869 to 1871. And he said, the neologue and the Hasidim, Orthodox, are fighting so much, they're driving us crazy. Get into a room and work it out, you know? So they did for 2 years. They got into a room, they tried to work it out. And at the end they said, we really hate each other. We don't want to work it out. And the neologue went to the left, I suppose. And the Hasidim, Hungarian Hasidim, we know their names, Satmar, Munkach, and Karasteller, they went to the right.
Yeah.
The people, and now the Second World War, the Shoah, went from west to east. So the people that survived the most were obviously the people in the far eastern part of the Jewish world, the far eastern Ukraine, the far eastern Hungary, which is now called Carpathian Mountains of Ukraine and Romania. Those people were extreme, particularly to reject the neologue. Even though by our standards, the neologue would be of no particular difficulty. They feel Orthodox. If you go to the synagogue, it feels like it's Orthodox. But the people in Brooklyn, in the Satmar communities and in Israel, and all these people that wear what we consider to be, broad-brimmed hats and like that, these are people that are living their lives actually in rejection of the neologue movement. And those people affect us. We have a real life. And the fact that Herzl was a Hungarian had a lot to do with their rejection of Zionism. Not everything. They embraced the diaspora. They had very good lives and they survived. So if you think about the Hasidic world in the 1920s and 30s, you would say it was overwhelmingly dominated by the Polish, right? A much more moderate, a much more modern, a much more malleable Hasidic world. But after the Shoah, the ones that survived were the Hungarians. And they were extreme, partially because of the neologue. The government in 1871 goes to the neologue and the Hasidim and says, we can't deal with you, do something. So they appointed a group of people that were neither neologue nor Hasidic, and we call them the status quo. And they were like the consistoire in France. They were only there to deal with the government and get the money from the government, which they still do, So it's a very complicated organization of a Jewish community, but an interesting one.
How does the community, you're talking about Satmar and Munkach, my dad's family, I'm actually Satmar and Munkach are my dad's family.
I know that about you.
I think that's where I get the somewhat extreme nature. Of course, not extremely Hasidic, but extreme and other things.
Yeah,
what
extreme.
You mentioned whether it's 100,000 or 200,000. What does the community look like today in terms of religious affiliation?
Oh, So I would say that the Chabad here, which uses about half of the Jewish resources, is around 200 people, maybe 150. They have many buildings though. They have museums, they have nursery schools, they have daycare centers, they have JCCs, they have the whole thing. 150 people out of 100,000, 120,000. The Majahis, which is the Jewish Synagogue Federation, let's say 10,000 people, 11, 12, 13, something like that. That leaves a healthy 90,000 Jews.
Are those, but within the Majahis?
Neolog. That's the Neolog. Right. That's the Reform Orthodox melange.
So the other, so you don't have a modern Orthodox presence in Hungary.
There is a modern Orthodox synagogue. I go to it. I really love it. I haven't gone for months because of the virus, but it's great, but very small. That would be modern Orthodox. But the big Orthodox synagogue in Kaczynski Street caters mostly to the huge number of Carpathian Hasidim that come through, spend Shabbos here or even less, and then go off to the graves of the saints. So if you ever fly to Hungary from New York, you always see Hasidim because they're coming to see the graves of the tzaddikim. I go to them also, by the way.
So the community breaks down. Essentially, you have a tiny number of Chabad, the majority of Neolog, and then you have of the ones who are observant are Neolog, and then the vast majority who are unaffiliated.
Secular. No, secular.
Secular.
I think the word unaffiliated is a much more complicated word.
Fair enough. Secular.
These are Jews that express their Jewish identity through some sense of peoplehood, some sense of we're the Jews. Maybe they go to the best university. Maybe they're in high tech. Maybe they just give more money for tzedakah. There's a lot of ways of being Jewish. If you looked at the help organizations, immigrant aid, poverty, Roma, people in America, it's called gypsies, but we call them Roma because gypsies is a negative word. Almost all of those organizations are run by Jews. So are those Jews affiliated? I don't know. I think so. I like them. It's good enough for me.
We would certainly say they're living active Jewish lives.
Very. I think these people are centrally Jewish, but they don't pay dues. No one, even to my mind, the Neolog, it just didn't, after the Shoah, it didn't progress. So it has, if you ask me, Michael Paley, like what movement I would want to be in, I would say, I'd like to be a Neolog rabbi of the 19th century. But I don't live in the 19th century. I live in the 21st century. So it's a very small group of people that are alive from the 19th century. And the Neolog and it just didn't evolve in the way that one would have hoped or
so
thought.
There's no real reform movement in Budapest. There
are two little communities, no synagogues, one woman rabbi. There's Marom, which is conservative. It's in the kind of alternative community center called Aurora. Nothing. No, none of those things.
Interesting.
But you're asking religious questions, and ultimately, what someone once asked, Ruth Ellen Gruber, I believe, asked about the Jewish museums in Budapest, and by which she meant the Holocaust Museum and the Jewish Museum of Jewish artifacts, synagogue crowns, and whatever. Usually it looks like a glorified gift shop most of the time, although it's getting better, and I love the director of the museum, Tironi Zsuzsa. But if you really want to see the Jews, go to the Museum of Agriculture, go to the Museum of Industry, go to the Museum of Science, go to the Museum of Art. Go to the literature museums. Those are the museums that have the Jews in them.
Talk to me a little bit about the JCC in Budapest.
Budapest. It was called for many years Balenthaus, and it was an absolutely revolutionary.
Why was it called Balenthaus?
The Balent family and then the Balent Foundation gave the original money.
Mm-hmm.
They're willing to rename it. So if anybody's listening to this and they would like to give money to rename it after themselves, just give me a call.
May I also put it out there that JCC Krakow is called JCC Krakow and is waiting for a nice Jewish name to be attached to it as well. But go ahead.
I thought it was named after the Krakow family.
Yeah, from Krakow.
From Krakow, yes. there must be some Krakows that will, and then you wouldn't have to change the stationery. So the JCC was basically the place where people went to take their first Jewish step. So like Poland, Hungary, most of the people didn't know they were Jews. The amazing thing about 100,000 Jews here is that in 1975, no one knew they were Jewish. The leader of the Jewish theater, Borgila Andrash, he went to go see his grandmother and answered the phone, and there was his uncle or his great uncle calling from Tel Aviv to find out if his brother was still alive, and that's how we found out he was Jewish. Zsuzsa Fritz, the director of the JCC, went to her father's funeral and asked her mother, "How come a rabbi is doing Dad's funeral?" And she said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, we're Jewish." Like many people went to the camp, Sarbash, and their parents said, "I have three things to tell you. You're going to camp, and it's a Jewish camp, and you're Jewish. Now for the bus." So people would walk into the Ballant house and they would say, "I have this tablecloth that has these little tassels on the side. Can you tell me about it?" And they would say, "Yes, we can. We can tell you about that." So the whole JCC was basically a doorway to open up into the world of Jewish life. Now, when you go in there, it does all the things that one would hope. There's a Holocaust survivor club called the Shalom Club. They sing. They're wonderful. There are people that work with people that are disabled, and there are people that do dancing, and there's Israeli dancing and things like that. Whether it will become the place that will form the next Jewish life of Budapest, I believe it will. I have a tremendous amount of confidence in it. I'm on the board, the American Friends of Ballant House board, and I think it's a great place. It could use a little magic from Krakow. I would say that, just a little.
Sprinkle some of the Krakow fairy dust.
I'm now going to say something about Krakow, then about Budapest. So you and other people, probably Justin mostly, but you and other people, succeeded in an amazing thing, which was changing the narrative of Jewish life in Krakow. I think we talked about that when I interviewed you a couple of months ago on something like this. You said, if Jewish life can be reborn in Krakow, it can be reborn anywhere. If it can survive here, then it will always survive. I believe that. So what's the new narrative of the Jewish community of Budapest? The first new narrative was, we're here, we're awake, we're back. Let's go to Israel. But when they went to Israel, they missed Budapest too much. They missed the cooking, they missed they missed it, the first night I came here, someone gave a sermon, Vero Tommy, his name is, and the sermon went like this. He said, why are we staying here? We're like the Jews in the desert that want to go back to Egypt for the good food. But the fact is that it's a very vibrant life here. It's very hard to leave. It's a very beautiful city. From my window right here, just stunning, just to look outside. So now we have to find the next narrative. Just reawakening isn't enough of a narrative to sustain us. Now we have to contribute, and that's why I'm here. I'm here to help a little bit, but mostly witness the new imagination, new incubation of a Jewish narrative that I think is a narrative that the whole Jewish world will enjoy.
I think you're there as much more than a witness. You're very, very modest, or occasionally modest, and this is one of those.
And occasionally not.
One of those occasions, but you're really there. I think that the idea that you moved there, especially how just and networked in you are in the American Jewish world, especially, I think the idea just that you moved there was really, I think, a powerful statement for not only for Budapest and what you're saying about Budapest, but just for this world. And the idea that something that you told me years and years ago when we met, which that you feel that the real and it was something I repeat to people, that the sort of energy and the new idea and the magic in the Jewish world is really going to come from the fringes, not from the sort of just by necessarily where most of us assume the Jewish world has all its energy, which is the Israel and North America.
I fully believe that. That's why we wear fringes.
There you go.
In my view, this has not happened, except a little bit in Krakow, almost not at all in Warsaw. Rabbinical students, Jewish communal, leaders should all spend some time in Central Europe, real time, and do that. Just think if all the JTS students or HUC students had to spend, let's just say 3 months in Budapest before they went to do their year in Israel. It'd be a better community, really. It would be interesting. I think rabbis would gain so much. There's a thing called Orzhai, which is the Jewish Theological Seminary of Budapest. Has a great library. No one takes care of it. It has lots of rabbinical students. They don't interact with anybody else. They provide rabbis for Europe, but it's very insular. It's neologue. I just think that the Reform and Conservative movement, they would be great to do internships here and study here, and I think it would help the world.
From your mouth to God's ears, Michael. Thank you very much once again. This part 2 was as fun as part 1, and have a safe trip back to the US. I know you're going to see your children and your grandson, and it's very exciting for a time for you. And be safe on the plane. Take care of yourself. We need you back here in Central Europe, and I appreciate you giving some of your time.
I'll be back by Yontif. I'd like to see you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody. Be well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.